on Masterpiece.
Not again.
Good morning to you too, James.
We've been robbed.
Tristan!
You spent the money. Don't worry. I have a plan.
I'm being put through my paces at Darrowby Racecourse.
The attending vet's retiring.
This is no ordinary colic.
He's due at the racecourse tomorrow.
All creatures great and small on Masterpiece.
Sunday, 9, 8 Central on KET.
It's a 1,000-year-old fortress, but it's no museum.
It's a home as well as a castle.
And keeping Queen Elizabeth's home up and running takes a lot of work.
I dreamed about serving the Queen one day, and here I am.
Get an unprecedented look inside Windsor Castle.
That's new and that's old.
And discover what really goes on in this royal residence. The Queen's Castle.
Sunday, 11, 10 Central on KET.
They were masters of the machinery of war.
Weapons that would strike fear into the enemy.
World War II was dominated by Germany's brilliant designs.
It's extremely impressive.
Historians uncover the secrets of the Third Reich's most fearsome creations and how the Allies overcame superior weaponry.
This really was the spearhead of Blitzkrieg.
On Nazi war machines.
Wednesday, 10, 9 Central on KET.
We are living history. Not many people get back up after they've been knocked down.
This is a powerful vision of history.
What happened on that night in Tulsa could happen today.
There is an urgent need to bring the Black communities together.
He's got my job. I'm the town.
What? You're taking my breath away.
This is amazing.
My heart is going pitter-patter.
You want a mind-blowing fact?
This isn't mind-blowing already?
Enslaved people like Harriet Tubman were the original abolitionists.
We take for granted things that other persons in other times would find extraordinary.
It's important for people to hear these stories.
All right, we ready?
1, 2, 1, 2.
Showtime. I'm intrigued.
I'm really Korean.
You know, I'm pretty Mexican. You descend from a Native American woman.
Whoa. Plot twist.
Oh my gosh. Sam?
I love knowing I'm a part of this.
This experience, I'm going to carry with me the rest of my life.
Finding Your Roots, season premiere January 4th on PBS and the PBS app.
Wishing you and yours a season full of kindness and joy. KET, where learning comes to life.
This event is the worst, most devastating, most deadly tornado event in Kentucky's history.
This, again, is not going to be a week or a month operation, folks.
It's just a chilling amount of destruction.
Even in the face of such tragedy, we can be confident that Kentucky will bounce back.
To the people of Western Kentucky, we're not going anywhere.
Good evening. I'm Renee Shaw. Thank you for joining us for our special report about the violent tornadoes that ravaged communities in Western Kentucky and has so far claimed the lives of 77 people. 12 children are among those killed by the storms. The victims range from 2 months old to 98 years old. Thousands are still without power. Governor Andy Beshear provided this update earlier this afternoon.
As we sit here almost 1 week to the day of the worst tornado disaster the state has ever seen, we are digging out. Yes, we are down. Yes, we are hurting, but we are not defeated and we are not broken. Together, we will dig out. Together, we will clean up. And together, we will rebuild both structures and lives. Our commitment is the long term. The years that it's going to take to get each and every family impacted and every town impacted back up on their feet. To me, this is deeply personal. These are our people, and they have been harmed by something the likes of which we have never seen. The trauma that so many have experienced, from those that were directly harmed to those that are there helping now, is real, and it's something we're going to have to address in the years to come. As of this morning, I believe our number of fatalities is now up to 77. That includes one new fatality confirmed in Lyon County, which brings their total to 1. It includes another death reported yesterday in Warren County. And it includes the 3 individuals in Hopkins County that we are aware of that haven't yet been confirmed by that coroner. So know that this number is still in flux. If it ends up being a little lower, we will all be grateful for that. We are now down in Hopkins County to just 1 missing person, and statewide we're now down to 1 missing person. That is incredible news. As of today, our Team Western Kentucky Tornado Relief Fund is at $18.39 million and growing. Anthony Pratt yesterday announced he was going to donate $1 million, and so many others have stepped up to do the right things. We have welcomed people into our state parks and will continue to do so. Kentucky Dam Village, now just 8 rooms available, housing 120 displaced Kentuckians and 170 first responders.
For the next hour, we'll look at the rescue, recovery, and rebuilding efforts of Kentucky communities with stories of survivors, first responders, and government leaders. The magnitude of the devastation is immense, and as we've all heard, captured images don't truly depict the tragic aftermath. This week, our public affairs crews visited Mayfield, Dawson Springs, and Bowling Green to capture some of the damage. In Mayfield, where a twister decimated the town square, families in one neighborhood spoke with us about how they survived and what they lost. Almost every inch of the city tells the tale.
Total devastation. Complete and total devastation.
This neighborhood tells the story of the day the unimaginable hit Mayfield.
I guess the best way to describe it is, the movie Saving Private Ryan, where they're going into cities in war-torn Germany. And that's what it looks like.
I came over the overpass that comes into town by the Old Ridge Monuments, and as soon as I topped it, I saw City Hall. I've never in my entire life been able to see City Hall from there. There's no trees and there's no buildings. There's nothing obstructing your view, and it's really hard to comprehend.
For many in this neighborhood, a place once called home can't even provide basic shelter.
The house collapsing on the south side, the north side, all the walls blew out. So it's all open on the other side of the house.
What took generations to build, torn down in moments.
My granddaddy came down here in the 1940s in this building, and he practiced all the way up until he retired. My father came here in 1978, 79, and started practicing here. So this building has been a part of my family since the 1940s. This is more than a building to us. This building provided a livelihood for generations and a happy livelihood.
What they lived through?
It hit, my ears popped, and I dropped down on my knees and covered my head.
And what was left in the aftermath? Stunning even to those who deal with trauma and disasters for a living.
There's so much just loss and tragedy and human heartache. It's a level of loss that I can't comprehend, and I hope that I'd ever have to. But we're just trying to do what we can to help people just carry on one day at a time. We walk around, we ask people, do you need help moving stuff, packing stuff, loading stuff, clearing stuff? Most people that we've spoken to are in crisis. Some people are 1,000-yard stare the whole time that you're there. Some people are a little bit teary-eyed.
Every day you go through different emotions dealing with something like this, Matt. It's just kind of despair and resolve and then repeat, and all during the same day.
But day by day, there are signs that life will return to normal. But it will be a new normal.
Everything that I can see here, with very few exceptions, is going to be bulldozed. So there's going to be a lot of empty space in this town. And it's going to be difficult for all of us, more so for some, to rebuild.
100% we'll rebuild. We've got to hang in there because all these folks are going to be gone soon. But we're going to be left here with the rebuild.
It's going to be a long haul. It's going to take years. But Mayfield will be back.
Neighbors helping neighbors. In these tragic times, the spirit of community and helping others dig through the rubble to salvage whatever they can, secure basic necessities, and comfort those who've suffered unimaginable loss is on full display. Everyday heroes from near and far are pitching in with the recovery efforts. We met a group from Dallas, Texas, who traveled more than 600 miles to lend a hand.
When they say, "Where y'all from?" and we say Dallas, Texas, they light up, "Wow, you drove." And then they look at this bus and they're like, "You drove that from Dallas and pulled that?" Back in 2012, we started the disaster relief program. Usually it takes about a week to get a hold of somebody and get on the road and get moving. Kentucky was different. This one happened a little quicker than usual. This is the least we can do, is come out here and try to support our fellow neighbors and our fellow Americans and just serve with compassion. They come through a lot of sadness, a lot of unknown. They don't know what the next step is. We're here to listen. We're here however we can help you. We're here to try to help you. One man came through and said, "This is only my second hot meal since the whole storm." And it's already, it's Tuesday. And that's hard to believe, but then he's crying and I'm giving him a hug. And it's a pretty nice community. They got a tight bond here in Mayfield, Kentucky. They're turning down the food. They're like, "No, just give me half a burger because I don't want to take something from somebody else." And I'm like, "I've got plenty of burgers. Please take a full one." Part of our mission statement at Good Shepherd Episcopal School is serving with compassion, and we try to live it. And this is the way we can live it. And it fills our bucket. It makes us feel good just to be able to help a little bit.
The education community and school leaders are a significant part of the community response to the destructive tornadoes that ripped through Kentucky. Area schools have become makeshift shelters, supplies warehouses, and food distribution centers. Mayfield Independent Schools lost its entire fleet of school buses in the storm. Superintendent Joe Henderson spoke with me this week about the overwhelming response to the crisis. Superintendent Henderson, thank you so very much for your time. I know that you are probably exhausted, and I don't take for granted that you're making time for us today, so thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am.
How are you holding up?
Pretty well. Obviously, you're correct. Pretty tired, but 12, 14-hour days. Basically working here at our hospital right now as a distribution center for food and items people continue to need after the tornado.
So even after the tornado struck, your school, at least one of them, was used as a place of refuge for folks who were displaced. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. The night it happened, I was in contact with the EMT service here locally and basically asked if we could open our school, or if we opened our school as a shelter for people to come. Obviously, we had homes that were decimated and people with nowhere to go. So that particular night, we opened the building. We had approximately 150 to 200 people here that basically we provided cots and blankets, pillows, food, water, things they needed. We were using a generator that was only large enough to power security lighting. So we did have some lighting, but we did not have any running water. So obviously that was a temporary site that was set up, best we could do at that time. And then the following day, we were able to move some people to a location in the county that had running water and electricity.
That's good to hear. Where do you go from here, sir?
Well, the main thing right now is, is to take care of the people in our community. We've tried to reach out to all of the families of our students, tried to locate them. Many of them are displaced in surrounding communities and hotels and things of that sort. Our family resource centers have tried to help with those accommodations and help finding those and help financially with those accommodations, trying to bridge the gap between the things that happened on Friday night and then when may be able to receive federal assistance or things of that sort. Very difficult because it hit a lot of our housing areas within our city limits. So I think the primary thing that we've had our focus on to this point is not so much about school, but just about making sure that our families have been located, that we can find them and basically help them with their basic.
I can't imagine, particularly for the young ones who've experienced this and maybe even lost family members or close friends. How do you think that your school district will deal with the emotional trauma of what these youngsters have endured and survived?
Well, we're already offering any mental and emotional support that we can here at our high school. We have gotten a generator in that's large enough to power a portion of the building to be able to provide those services for anybody that can get here and is able to come in. Obviously, that's something that discussions moving down the road that we'll continue to have to implement some things strategy-wise. And, we've been in contact with our local co-op, and there is some teams available that we do, when that will be, I'm not sure, get back in school. They will have people to help us basically transition back.
That was going to be my next question, Superintendent, about when do you anticipate that you can restart school? I know that's far away right now as far as an immediate concern of yours, but have you given any thought, to when that might happen?
Well, yes, we're, as I said, our primary concern to this point has really been about the safety of our folks, finding them. But at this point, January the 3rd was our start date after the winter break. I'm not sure that we'll meet that deadline, but, honestly, yes, it's been in the back of my mind, but that as the next week or so goes by, that'll be something we'll probably have further discussions about.
You mentioned, we call them sometimes shorthandedly, the Frisky Centers, the Family Resource and Youth Service Centers, and the critical role that they're playing. But the schools, too, really, as you've already discussed, responding to the community needs. But those Frisky Centers and operations are really, really being mobilized right now, aren't they, sir?
Yes, ma'am. One thing in a small community in rural areas, many times they look to the schools first for help. We just try to provide anything that we can to help at this point in time. Our Frisky Centers, we actually have 2 Frisky employees in our district, and they're just kind of like I am right now. They're kind of overwhelmed, so we're trying to get them extra support and extra help to be able to provide those needs to students, not only with, currently, but this is going to be things that we have to help these families with for a long time to come. So I would just like to say I'm so thankful for the outpouring of generosity coming from not just across the region, the state, across the entire country, that we see truckload donations and things to help our families during a very difficult time. So both with supplies as well as financially, and all those things will be greatly needed to hopefully get some of our families back on the feet.
Well, thank you, Superintendent Henderson. I'm glad that you are safe. I hope your family is as well. And, of course, the whole community, Mayfield and all the other impacted communities will be in our thoughts and prayers. And so God bless you and take really good care.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. Local, state, and federal agencies mobilized in the recovery effort from the swarm of deadly tornadoes that barreled through 6 states. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear requested and was granted a federal disaster declaration for the state, which was supported by Kentucky's federal delegation in Washington. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said the declaration will benefit the hardest hit communities.
This is the worst storm to hit Kentucky in my lifetime. The tornadoes caused considerable damage in 15 counties all across the Commonwealth. Thousands lost their homes. At every level of local, state, and federal government across both political parties, Kentucky's leaders have come together to coordinate and to provide aid. Kentucky has been devastated, but we have not been defeated. Kentuckians are resilient people who will stay strong and united through the crisis.
When asked if a future relief package for Western Kentucky will be pushed for in the Kentucky legislature when state lawmakers convene in January, here's what Christian County Republican State Senator Whitney Westerfield had to say when we spoke with him on Monday. State Senator Whitney Westerfield, thank you so very much for your time today.
Absolutely, Renee.
One of the things that is heartwarming is to seeing how Kentucky galvanizes behind our brothers and sisters.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and to see you and others who are in these official capacities, you know, wrap your arms around your fellow colleagues who are dealing with this on a very intimate, personal level themselves. So can you talk about the unbridled spirit of West Kentucky and Western Kentucky and how it will rebuild?
It is unbridled spirit. The reaction from everyone across the West Kentucky region, across the rest of the Commonwealth, and really, Renee, across the country, has been swift and great. In fact, and I grinned thinking about it, and it was just like a yes, and it's such exciting moment. I was about to leave Mayfield early Saturday morning, and I'm sitting at the entrance to the airport, and I had to wait for a convoy of electric co-op utility trucks coming in. I mean, it wasn't 9 o'clock in the morning yet. And here comes just a slew of them rolling in. And I knew that those folks and so many others from around Kentucky and the rest of the world are starting to just pile on Mayfield and help. Neighbors helping neighbors, digging things out, rescuing people, retrieving things, getting things back connected again. Getting power poles back up and cell service restored and water restored and all the things that you and we all take for granted until a tornado comes and destroys all that infrastructure. But it's exciting to see that. And as tragic as this weekend has been, it's great to know that we love one another and we care for one another. And no one over the last several days has given one rip about who you voted for or what party you are or where you are, where you live or what you do. Doesn't matter. Yeah. What matters is getting people back to a sense of normalcy and getting them taken care of, giving them shelter. And so that's what we've seen. And I'm thrilled by that.
Yes. Yeah, hear to that. Well, and you know, not only does this come on the eve of the holidays, which makes it even more tragic, but, you know, when you all, the lawmakers, go back to Frankfurt January 4th of 2022, where will this fit in, or does it fit in to the issues that you'll be addressing? Do you see there being some action from Frankfurt to help in some way?
I think that goes without saying. I think if you had asked this question a week ago, the topics would have been budget, budget, and budget. Well, but a normal budget. We'd be talking about ARPA dollars, and we'd be talking about redistricting. I think all of those things got shunted one spot down on the list. And I know for the West Kentucky representatives and senators, this is at the top of the list.
Thank you, Senator Whitney Westerfield. Appreciate you, sir. At midweek, President Biden visited storm-ravaged areas in western Kentucky and pledged even greater support to help communities rebuild. He is increasing federal disaster funds to cover all cleanup and emergency services in the state for 30 days. The recovery, though, will take much longer. Some say even years. Many storm survivors are asking where to go from here. But amid the sorrow over lives lost, livelihoods in question, and how to rebuild, there is hope. Here's KET's Casey Parker Bell.
I could hear it ripping through the house behind us, and so I grabbed their hands and started praying and just asking God to keep us all safe in the neighborhood and everything.
Ashley Hunt is one of the more than 1,000 people who lost their homes during the 5 tornadoes that swept across Kentucky. She and her family are safe, despite their roof being completely ripped from their house. As she and her children hid in the closet, her sister and mother stayed in their now destroyed living room.
You can almost visualize where it was by the rumbling and the noise that it was making. And I waited till it got like 2 houses away from us, and maybe a little further, till I opened the door, and it was like, "Is everybody okay?" And most everybody said yeah. And I seen my mom and my sister sitting on the couch still with the roof gone and the wall down, and they were getting rained on.
The tornado brought destruction to Mayfield, but what it also brought was the love of community out for everyone to see. Neighbors are ensuring that others have shelter, food and water to drink, that they can get where they need to be to ensure that they're safe.
I mean, that's unreal. I mean, it's when you know what it looked like and then you can see it now, it's just absolutely devastating.
Stephen Elder was one of the first people in downtown Mayfield after the storms hit. His photos showed the world Mayfield after the tornado. He spent the days since trying to help others.
Everybody's doing something. If you're doing anything, you're doing something.
In his truck, with a trailer attached, he and a group of volunteers are driving around town, knocking on doors, trying to give people the supplies they need in a desperate time.
I think this is going to be a long-term effort, right? So it's not just, somebody lost power for a few days. No, somebody's got a tree in their house. Somebody has, the house is completely gone.
Elder drove through the ruins that are now downtown Mayfield to give out whatever is needed. They filled generators with gas.
What are you going to do for Christmas?
I don't know.
Sat stacks of water on doorsteps and handed out food to eat. Some people use generators to power cell phones, their sole connection to the outer world.
I wanted to come and help people out. I live here in Graves County, and this is a huge opportunity. Whenever it's off from here, I'm not able to go. And just seeing the needs of so many people that are devastated without their house. I lost a garage, but that's nothing compared to houses being to the ground.
The Mayfield Fairgrounds have become the central point for people to bring donations and those that need help to find it. As you can see here, there's water bottles stacked as far as you can see, and 2 warehouses full of supplies that people have brought to help those that need it. Pulling through the fairgrounds is an odd experience. A place meant to bring joy with Christmas lights is instead a refuge for the distressed. People want to help any way they can.
That's a 4.
Donna Birtle questioned if she wanted to do an interview, but knew why she was.
Oh man, wait, let me get it together. Why am I doing this? Because people need help.
Like many places in rural Kentucky, the community is countywide. In Fancy Farm, 15 minutes outside of Mayfield, the local elementary school has become a relief hub. They have tables and tables and tables filled with clothes and supplies, ready for people to walk in and take what they need.
It's mind-boggling to think that one event could cause so much destruction.
From the familiar place of a cafeteria, the school is helping people recover. Principal Throgmorton says schools are oddly prepared to help because of the challenges from COVID. She says her school can be a sanctuary in this time of need.
There's hope in the fact that people are always willing to help, that everyone can come together, and in spite of what they've lost or what they don't have, they'll seek a way to provide that for others.
In Dawson Springs, 75% of homes were destroyed. Some are completely gone, with basements exposed. The bricks and mortar that stood on top of them are lost in the puzzle of debris. On Wednesday, President Biden walked the community streets. He offered what consolation he could give.
And I intend to do whatever it takes, as long as it takes to support your state, your local leaders, and as you recover and rebuild, because you will recover and you will rebuild.
In Kentucky, we are good people. We love one another, and we lean on one another. We open our homes to those in need, not just today, but every day. And we will repair our homes, our businesses, and we will repair our lives. We will do all of that together.
Those words of consolation came with action. The president promised the federal government would pay for the full cost of the disaster response for 30 days. Back in Mayfield, residents echoed the president and the governor, saying their town's story is far from over.
We're going to rebuild. It's going to be beautiful and bright and exciting, and I have no doubt that we're going to come out stronger than this. We just absolutely will.
It's all going to be okay, just one step at a time.
That's right.
Around town, you see American flags flying amidst the destruction, a symbol of defiance against weather out of their control. That defiance is shown through the town's service. It helped Ashley Hunt. She's been able to keep a sense of humor, partially because of that help.
I like what you did with the place. It's really open and spacious. You get a really good breeze.
Because of the community's helping hand. Her daughter Naraya will get a Christmas this year.
We are so lucky.
No, we're not. We're loved.
Yes, we're not lucky, we're loved.
For KET, I'm Casey Parker Bell.
Well, Casey Parker Bell joins us now. It's good to see you, Casey.
Thanks, Renee.
You've had a trying week, but probably not as trying as those that you've been covering this week. So tell us about, you were there when the tornadoes struck, and then you went back a few days later. So the difference between the two and the days in between.
Yeah, Renee, this weekend what we saw was a city in total devastation. Power lines over the road. If you were driving, you had to go around debris. And when you were downtown where the tornado struck, what you really saw was people just torn apart, not just their houses, but themselves. And they're in the street, they're looking for their goods, they're wondering where their loved ones were. That's what you saw when you were in downtown Mayfield this weekend.
Yeah, and this is kind of close to your home territory. I know your father, I think, is from that area. So to see the destruction and what is a very familiar territory to you, how would you describe it? Because we've heard many people say the pictures just don't really do it justice.
You can't capture what you saw with a camera lens.
Mm-hmm.
And as you drive around Mayfield, if you know your town, that building's where I turn right to go here. It's impossible to do that in Mayfield now. You totally lose your sense of direction because the city does not look like what it did before the tornado.
Yeah, and real quickly, what do people tell you that they still need?
People still need supplies. When you're talking to people on the ground, they still need goods of all kinds. But the thing that everyone is concerned about is what will this look like 2 weeks from now? Right now, people have overwhelming support. They're coming to help. People on the street are asking, can they bring a chainsaw? But 2 weeks from now, what will it look like? And we want people to keep Mayfield, Dawson Springs, Bowling Green in their mind as this tragedy goes forward.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being on the ground and for your coverage.
Thanks, Renee.
Yeah. Hundreds of members of the Kentucky National Guard are on the ground in western Kentucky. Their mission is wide-ranging. In an interview earlier this week, Colonel Timothy R. Stark, Director of Operations for the Kentucky Army National Guard, said his team was making a plan while the tornadoes were still on the ground. Colonel Timothy Stark, thank you for a few minutes of your time.
You're very welcome.
And thank you for your service, not just to our country, but particularly in this instance now that we're experiencing in Kentucky. When did the National Guard start activating troops to respond to the western Kentucky tornadoes?
It was pretty much immediately during Friday night and into Saturday morning. I know most of us with the Adjutant General and the senior leadership of the state, we're in immediate communication, starting with when the first tornado touched down in Mayfield. And then we really kept track of it during the course of the night as additional areas were affected. And just with initial reports coming in, we started to develop ideas of which resources we would need to employ, as well as opening up our plans that we have for disaster response. We were able to start mobilizing units really first thing Saturday morning.
And where are you throughout the western Kentucky region?
Right now, we are in 10 counties. We have really 31 distinct different missions going on. Of course, the main areas where we have the largest efforts are in Graves County and Mayfield, Hopkins County and Dawson Springs, and then in Muhlenberg County and Bremen. But we do have units really throughout the region in the affected counties to respond to a variety of different requirements.
And how many troops total are there?
The numbers, really fluctuate as the missions increase or as different requirements evolve. But right now, the number is over 550 soldiers from the Kentucky National Guard. Right. And that includes airmen as well, soldiers and airmen.
And I want to ask you about how you're assisting. What are the tasks that you're involved in and the response that the soldiers are having to the aftermath of this disaster?
Yes, ma'am. We have a variety of different responses that we're operating in. We bring a lot of unique capabilities really from our military training. So primarily at this point in time, we began with search and rescue, and those efforts have really concluded at this point. So we're very much focused on area security, on debris removal to open roads and lines of communication in that area, and in commodities distribution, and making sure that that food and water and other supplies are getting to those that need.
You mentioned, Colonel Stark, about securing the perimeter because, and it's hard to believe that there may be some looting that could take place amongst all that rubble and to protect folks' property. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that exercise looks like for you all?
Sure, and that's an unfortunate part, really, of any emergency response we've ever been a part of, and that's throughout the nation, really, when we have these things. That there always are opportunists that are willing to take advantage of those that are in their time of need, which is unfortunate. But certainly, being out there and being able to take on tasks like traffic control or access control on perimeters to allow law enforcement to really be able to be able to exercise their law enforcement requirements. When all of a sudden you have this huge amount of area that has everything from traffic accidents to to ongoing regular crime, to be able to have us out there and take on some of those missions that may not necessarily require a sworn law enforcement officer, it helps to expand the footprint and the capabilities of local law enforcement in the area. So it's a mission that we do often, and it helps us to kind of get back to steady state with the local resources.
Sure. Do you anticipate that the Kentucky National Guard would be the only military deployment?
Yes, at this time, between the Kentucky Army and Air National Guards, we do anticipate that will be the only military forces required in the response.
How does this disaster in Western Kentucky compare to what you see in other areas, natural disaster or otherwise? How would you rate it?
It's a great question. I mean, every natural disaster is unique in its own way. And I think the best thing I can compare it to in Kentucky, particularly in Western Kentucky, is the ice storm of 2009, where you had extremely widespread damage where nobody had power and water and the roads were blocked. And that was more of a widespread area. In this case, the devastation is much more severe, but it's concentrated into some of those areas we discussed. And absolutely, the people who are impacted by it, the destruction is like nothing I've ever seen before. And I think as bad as the pictures look on TV for those who have seen them, seeing it in person is exponentially worse. But the positive of it being concentrated to some of those areas is that those who have not been affected directly have come out in force in terms of volunteers and people willing to help and people bringing food and supplies and clothes and everything you can imagine. So it has enabled us to respond a little more in terms of the population than we were able to do in things like an ice storm or a hurricane where everybody is affected. And it kind of precludes those volunteer efforts from taking place.
Yeah. Well, Colonel Timothy Stark, thank you so very much for your time today, but also, more importantly, for your service and help during this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and you're very welcome.
Experts suggest this tornado outbreak will be studied for years to come. One of those experts was recruited to survey the damage in Western Kentucky. Meteorologist Tim Marshall has had an interest in tornadoes since he was a kid, when his hometown was hit by an F4 tornado in 1967. In an interview earlier today, Marshall talked about the history-making storms. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Tim Marshall. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance, sir.
Thanks for the invite.
And I understand that you are from Dallas, Texas, but yet you have a keen interest in the tornadoes that ravaged through Kentucky.
Yes, I was very interested because of many factors there. A very long track, very intense tornado this time of year.
This time of year, and I was just going to ask you about the peculiarity of that strength of tornado in December. I mean, does this ever happen?
Well, violent tornadoes have happened in December. It's just that this is quite far north, and the track is unprecedented as far as its length is concerned. And I also think that the intensity for that duration is also unprecedented.
And so many have called this historic. The governor has called this historic. Is this historic in your mind?
Yes, I believe it was. I mean, once all of the plotting can get done, we can see what the total path length was because it crossed many county warning areas. And I think this could be a record.
How long does it take to do this kind of investigative work to make those determinations?
Well, it takes several weeks to piece all this together because, as you know, this was a very long track. So work is still ongoing on this event. And then after that, I am sure that there will be research papers done in the future, years down the road, because of this historic event.
And I want to ask you, you've been kind enough to share some photos with us, and a couple of them are really startling. One of a refrigerator, fully intact, probably still operational, that's lodged in a tree.
Yes, the doors were still intact on this refrigerator, and outside of a few scuffs and scrapes, it really didn't look that bad a condition at all, although the surrounding was destroyed. The tree was broken and the houses were gone.
And then the other of a tire, and this made some news in our Kentucky media. You're knelt down by a truck and there is a piece of wood that is lodged in a tire. I mean, some of these things you couldn't make happen if you tried, right?
You know, you're talking about a high velocity branch coming in here to do that sort of penetration through that tire. And then the truck was still there. It was intact. It didn't move. And so that tells you that there's high velocity debris outside the tornado track, which can be quite hazardous.
So what are the ingredients that came together, colluded together to make these storms so strong and deadly?
Well, you certainly had it warm and muggy conditions, and that is a telltale sign, especially in December. You had an upper storm system coming in from the west, and you had a very strong jet stream, which set up what we call speed shear. And any storm that develops in there can access some of that energy and spin, and that's what happened.
What are some lessons learned, Mr. Marshall, from these spate of storms that we can prepare for, perhaps prevent the loss of life going forward? Is there any advice or any lessons learned from this?
I think we've learned that tornadoes can occur at any time of year. I mean, December in Kentucky, who would think 2 weeks before Christmas that you'd have a tornado outbreak? But this can and does happen. So because tornadoes can occur any time of year, never let your guard down. This can always happen. If you're under a tornado watch, that means the conditions are favorable for tornado activity. It's just paying attention. If you're under a tornado warning, that means the tornado has been sighted either on radar or someone on the ground. Seek shelter immediately.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mr. Tim Marshall, engineer and a meteorologist, and thank you for all your work to help us all learn a lot about these storms and hopefully keep more people safe. Appreciate you, sir.
Thank you, Nell.
Preliminary findings suggest it was at least an EF4 tornado that was on the ground for more than 100 miles in western Kentucky. Michael Kochasik with the National Weather Service in Louisville says there were early indications nearly a week in advance that this storm would be powerful. Mr. Kochasik, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
So will you, for us, talk about the track of these storms and the strength of these storms and the duration and where they started, where they ended?
Sure. So these tornadoes started in western Kentucky, and as we've seen on the news, went through Graves County and hit the poor people of Mayfield. And our hearts go out to those folks. We're absolutely devastated here in the Weather Service to see the damage and hear the horrific stories that went down on those late afternoon and evening hours on December 10th and in the early overnight morning hours of December 11th. But early indications are that this tornado went on the ground for 165 miles, and it could be even longer than that once we finish up our damage surveys. But it was a horrific event and just an absolute tragedy for Kentucky.
How long does it take to get those final damage estimates complete?
Sure. So really it comes down to manpower, and there's lots to look at. Well, we had several tornadoes across the state, and there's a lot of ground to cover and a lot of damage to look at. So it's just a matter of drive time and how fast we can get crews out there to see all the damage across the state. So it could take a week or two to finalize the track length, but for right now it's about 165 miles across Kentucky for that one track.
Would you classify this spate of tornadoes as a tornado outbreak? And how odd is that for this time of year?
Sure. So this is definitely an outbreak when you have several tornadoes tracking across central Kentucky, western Kentucky, and all parts of the state, and even across state lines. that is quite the scenario for an outbreak. For December, it's fairly rare, but it's not unheard of. We have a rich history of tornadoes in Kentucky, and if you go to our website, which is weather.gov/Louisville, you can see a page there for all the tornadoes that happen by month and by towns. The last tornado that was this strong in the F3 to EF4 category happened in 1952 for Tell City. So it's pretty rare to have a strong tornado like this December.
And can you talk to us about how many tornadoes? We understand that there were 2 in Warren County that were separate from the one that happened in Dawson Springs and Mayfield.
Right. So there's several tornadoes for central Kentucky, at least. We're still counting because the track, sometimes tornadoes bounce. And if they're more than 2 miles apart, it's technically a separate second tornado. So we have 15 tornadoes so far in central Kentucky and many more that tracked across western Kentucky there. So we're still kind of counting, and final surveys here over the next week will help probably increase that number.
What do you hope to learn from this tornado outbreak that can hopefully help maybe even better predict the next one or help keep more people safe?
Sure. So I think we're learning as we talk to folks that some took the appropriate action and kind of more of a social science approach that, they got the warning on their cell phones as much as half an hour of lead time, which is really good. We're also hearing other stories of people getting the warning and not taking the right actions. So we're learning one thing already, that it's really good to heed the warning when you get it, because tornadoes can really come at a moment's notice at times and do a lot of damage, but also to have more than one way, multiple ways to receive warnings in case you have one that is a fail point for you.
I'm sure the tools now that are available to forecast these things have come a long way since 1952.
Absolutely. So we have awesome tools. Radar is one of those tools, but we have much more than that. We have awesome satellites and computer models that really help days in advance. There were signals that this would be a historic event as much as 6 to 7 days in the future, where in the past you might have been lucky to have several hours of notice. So it's getting much more advanced, and not only are our equipment getting better, but our spotters are more connected. They're on cell service, Twitter and Facebook, and we love getting those reports from folks. But it's great all around to help improve the warning time in 2021.
Well, thank you, Mike Kochasik. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Bowling Green in Warren County was another area hit hard by the storms. 2 tornadoes touched down in the county that night. 17 people in Warren County were killed, including a 13-year-old girl. Funerals for the victims in Bowling Green began Saturday. Not only were lives lost and homes destroyed, but so too were people's livelihoods. Small business owners in Bowling Green are being showered now with support.
You always hear the term war zone, but I mean, that's what it was. I mean, when there's literally telephone poles laying across the bypass and you can't go from A to B without tripping over all that debris, it's a little overwhelming.
Just total devastation. You go 2 to 3 blocks that away, there's houses torn down, roofs missing. I mean, everybody I know has lost something.
I think, you just have to see it. You have to, it's one thing to see it on television or in pictures. It's another thing to, be here on the ground and it's just overwhelming. It's just overwhelming.
I made it up to my other building long enough to make a little video and realize water was just coming in. It was just leaking like a sieve, and it wasn't until I got there in the daylight I realized the roof was gone.
It was pretty devastating, just seeing everything I've built and done, and all the memories and all the stuff that's gone on here, and to walk up and see it just completely demolished like that, it was pretty rough. And before I got here, there was a whole family of people waiting to start moving all the equipment and getting all the product out that they could. And throughout the next 2 days, I'd say there was over 60 people.
It's just going to take time. You see all the folks out helping clean up. We see There's so much volunteer support right now that it's being turned away.
I've lived here my entire life, and it's these type things you see the good in people, and a lot of people are giving back, and just can't realize what you have until you lose it.
Today, I spoke with State Representative Patty Mentor, who represents Bowling Green. She gave us an update on the extent of damage and what's needed to rebuild. Representative Patty Mentor, thank you for a few minutes of your time today.
Of course, Renee. Thank you so much for having me.
So how are you doing, and how are you feeling about maybe some of the progress that's been made in the last several days after the tornado struck almost a week ago? How are you feeling about where things stand right now, and how do you even measure and quantify the loss?
Well, first, thank you for asking. My family and I are safe. We're only 4 blocks from one of the major sites of devastation, which is our US 31 bypass small business corridor. And the devastation here is unfathomable. Just 4 blocks from our house, the business corridor was devastated by what we now know was an EF3 165 mile per hour winds. I still can't really even wrap my brain around that. But when you see the devastation, these are mom and pop businesses, small businesses that we need all the help that we can get to help them come back and be strong and be the vibrant parts of our community they were. The current estimate is 904 houses or residences in Bowling Green have been harmed, either devastated or severely damaged so that people cannot live there. So 100 businesses, 904 residences damaged or destroyed. Again, and the human cost. The human cost is just incalculable. We've had 17 people lost. And, our hearts are broken, and, our hearts are with the survivors and their families. And we're going to do everything we can to support them. And I'm grateful for the federal involvement because it is desperately needed. It's desperately needed. Our business owners, our people who are trying to build their residences back or find new places to live because their rental property, their apartments have been devastated. We need all the help we can get to get money into their hands so they can begin to have recovery and get back to where they were.
As far as the recovery goes, and we know that there's federal aid that's coming, but Kentucky state lawmakers are on the precipice of a regular session that begins January 4th. Where do you think this should fall in the priority line of things that are addressed early on in the session, and what should a relief package look like from the state?
Well, it's a great question, and we're grateful, very grateful for the federal money, and President Biden has been here and promised an unprecedented 30 days of federal money in order to pay for our first responders, for their overtime, and we're incredibly grateful. But it's going to take a lot longer than 30 days. So anything the General Assembly can do to go beyond that 30 days is so necessary. We need matching funds in order to help with this recovery. We need, much like we did at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, we need to make sure that we have the appropriate executive orders and the appropriate legislative actions to make the process seamless for people who are applying for small business aid, for FEMA aid. I am told that there will be emergency unemployment funds that are made available for people who can't work because their businesses have been destroyed. Again, if you take that 100 businesses and you multiply that, let's say every business has 10 employees, and I'm sure most of them have more, but you can do the math. I mean, there are a lot of affected people. So that's really going to be crucial for the legislature. And, this tornado is not partisan. It destroyed everywhere. So I hope that we can work across the aisle. And I hope we can work unanimously to make sure that the folks in Bowling Green, the folks in Dawson Springs, the folks in Mayfield and Princeton and Taylor County had damage and casualties as well. I don't want to leave anybody out, but I want to make sure that we all work together as a team in the legislature to make sure that our folks have the relief they need to get on their feet, the recovery money they need to start to build back and begin the process of living their lives and running their businesses again. And this is not going to be a fast process. It's going to take months. So I welcome the opportunity to work with my colleagues in the General Assembly to make sure that we have the relief and the recovery funds that we need, and that we can provide the structural support that homeowners, renters, and small business owners are going to need going forward to get Bowling Green back and Kentucky back stronger than ever.
Well, thank you, Representative Patty Minter. Those are fine words to end our discussion on. We so appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you so much, Renee. And again, Kentucky, we are grateful for your outpouring of support for our relief efforts. Our hearts are broken, but our hearts are full because you are with us. Thank you, Renee.
Thank you. Take good care.
Thank you.
There are still some unanswered questions. A class action lawsuit is now filed against Mayfield Consumer Products. The company owns a candle factory in Mayfield that was leveled by a tornado. 8 people at that factory died. Some workers allege they were told they would be fired if they left work ahead of the storm. Governor Andy Beshear says the state is investigating.
State OSHA looks at all fatalities that occur in a workplace. So there will be a level of review that will take months. I saw that report earlier. So we do that as a matter of course. And so, yes, you can expect a state agency to be taking a look. Now, we do this in all of them. So it shouldn't suggest that there was any wrongdoing, but what it should give people confidence in is that we'll get to the bottom of what happened, and once the investigation is complete, to be transparent about it.
In a statement, Troy Propst, CEO of Mayfield Consumer Products Company, said the following: "We are immediately retaining an independent expert team to review the actions of our management team and employees on the evening when a tornado struck our facility. We're confident that our team leaders acted entirely appropriately and were, in fact, heroic in their efforts to shelter our employees. We're hearing accounts from a few employees that our procedures were not followed. We're going to do a thorough review of what happened, and we're asking these experts to critique our emergency plans and to offer any suggestions on ways they may be improved, if any. In addition, we're giving all employees $1,000 to assist them in covering short-term financial needs, and we'll continue to provide additional support to our employees and our beloved community." So many Kentuckians, organizations, and broadcast media outlets have shown such charity at this difficult time. If you have questions about how to get involved, we have a resource page at ket.org/Kentucky-tornadoes. There you can find links to valuable resources, including how to help and where storm victims can get assistance. Our thoughts continue to be with those who are suffering, and we pray for you. I'm Renee Shaw, and on behalf of all of us here at KET, take good care.
Welcome to the Bradley Symphony Center. Join the Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra for its 2021 Gala Grand Opening Concert. PBS presents, live from the Bradley Symphony Center, Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra.
Next on KET.
Isn't there anyone who knows what Christmas is all about? We need a Christmas tree. Merry Christmas, Charlie Brown!
Let's get started.
Fasten your seatbelt.
That sounds stimulating.
It is. This was a revolutionary moment.
Delicious.
I shook up the world. It's wild.
You gotta see it to believe it.
It was just too exciting.
There's nowhere in the world like it.
I'm stunned.
You gotta see it to believe it.
Steady as she goes.
It has been a historic week.
That journey was so perilous.
I've never seen anything like this.
There is so much more to learn.
Wow.
It's right at the heart of what we do. It sounds great. Very good. Carry on.
You gotta see it to believe it.
The Red Green Show, Saturday, 7:30, 6:30 Central on KET. KET Movie Classics, coming up this week.
Here's a classic movie quiz. 1951's The Misfits stars Marilyn Monroe and Clark Gable.
Will you go on inside now and stop being silly?
Directed by John Huston, who wrote the film's screenplay.
Listen, if you want to go somewhere, I don't mind being alone.
Do I look like I want to leave?
Arthur Miller. You provide the popcorn, the couch, and the TV. We'll provide great movies like The Misfits.
On KET Movie Classic, Saturday, 9, 8 Central.
It's a 1,000-year-old fortress, but it's no museum.
It's a home as well as a castle.
And keeping Queen Elizabeth's home up and running takes a lot of work.
I dreamed about serving the Queen one day, and here I am.
Get an unprecedented look inside Windsor Castle.
That's new and that's old.
And discover what really goes on in this royal residence. The Queen's Castle.
Sunday, 11, 10 Central on KET. Wishing you and yours a season full of kindness and joy. KET, where learning comes to life.